The situation in Gaza has taken a troubling turn after Hamas gunmen launched an attack on Israeli Defense Forces YDF troops operating within the Gaza Strip. This attack comes at a time when the fragile ceasefire, brokered under US support, has been holding for over a month. Israel has been quick to respond, with airstrikes targeting what it claims was a high-level Hamas command meeting. This escalation is a clear indication that Hamas is attempting to break the ceasefire and reignite hostilities, a move that could have grave consequences for the region. Israeli officials have expressed concern that the terror group is actively working to rebuild its military capabilities with the assistance of Iran and Hezbollah, positioning itself as a significant threat not just to Israel, but to the wider Middle East. In addition to the escalating violence in Gaza, Israel's intelligence services have uncovered a significant Hamas terror network operating across Europe. This network has been involved in a wide range of activities, from the acquisition of weapons to the planning of attacks on Jewish and Israeli targets across the continent. Authorities in Germany, Austria and other European nations have been working closely with Israeli intelligence agencies to uncover the full extent of the operation. The discovery has already led to a series of arrests, and authorities have reportedly found weapons caches and explosives linked to the network. One of the key suspects in the investigation is the son of a senior Hamas leader, Bassem Naim. According to Israeli officials, these findings are clear evidence that Hamas's top leadership is directly involved in planning and orchestrating terror operations across Europe. Despite public denials from the group, the intelligence points to a coordinated effort to expand their reach beyond the borders of Gaza. Meanwhile, in a separate but related development, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a rare visit to the IDF-controlled buffer zone in Syria. During his visit, Netanyahu emphasized the strategic importance of Israel's presence in the region, describing it as vital to the country's security. We attach enormous importance to our ability, both defensive and offensive here, to protecting our Druze allies and especially protecting the state of Israel and its northern border across the Golan Heights, Netanyahu said. His visit underscored the growing importance of the region to Israel's national security, especially as tensions in Syria remain high. Netanyahu warned that Israel's mission in Syria could evolve at any moment, suggesting that the situation remains fluid and unpredictable. Netanyahu's comments come amid stalled talks with Damascus over a proposed security arrangement for southern Syria. These talks, which have been taking place quietly for some time, have failed to yield any concrete results. However, the Israeli leader's visit to the region sends a clear message that Israel is committed to maintaining a strong military presence along its northern border. This military posture is seen as a necessary safeguard against potential threats from Hezbollah, Iran, and other hostile actors operating in the area. Back in Gaza, the fragile ceasefire has been further tested by a recent study that has sparked outrage across Europe and beyond. A report from the research group Impact SE analysed over 300 Palestinian textbooks and dozens of teacher guides, revealing that anti-Semitic content is still widespread within the Palestinian educational system. The study found that Jewish people are routinely depicted as deceitful and inherently corrupt enemies of Islam, and some textbooks even go so far as to claim that Israeli soldiers engage in horrific acts such as bashing children's heads in front of their mothers and mutilating women for jewellery. These graphic depictions are not only deeply disturbing, but also part of an ongoing effort to indoctrinate future generations with hate. The study also uncovered a particularly disturbing element within the curriculum, a guide for 7th grade students that instructs them to draw violent scenes, including depictions of Israeli soldiers committing atrocities. According to the researchers, this content is a deliberate attempt by Palestinian authorities to mould the minds of young people in line with an ideology of hate. They started with education and rewriting the curriculum. Why? Because they understood that if they want to maintain power, they need to educate a future generation according to their values, said one of the report's authors. This chilling observation highlights how deeply entrenched the cycle of violence and hatred has become in the region, with children being taught to view Jews as the enemy from a young age. The revelation has sparked international condemnation, particularly from European governments who have warned that such content violates an agreement signed by the Palestinian Authority with the European Union last year. The agreement called for an end to anti-Semitic content in Palestinian textbooks, and this latest report suggests that the curriculum has not changed as promised. This raises serious questions about the ability of the Palestinian Authority to uphold its commitments and whether it is actively fostering a culture of violence and hatred through its educational system. In Washington, the White House hosted a meeting with several Israeli hostages who were recently released as part of the ceasefire deal. Among the hostages was Eton Moore, a former captive who has become a vocal advocate for those still imprisoned by Hamas. Moore is expected to present President Trump with a letter and a dreidel as a token of gratitude for his efforts to secure the release of the hostages. Moore's message underscored the broader context of the conflict, framing it not just as a war between two political entities, but as a battle against an ideology of hate. He said, well, it just underlines this isn't a war against a nation state. It's not a war against a particular political group or a particular government. It's a war against an ideology. It's an ideology of hate that is rooted in Islam. Moore's comments highlight the ideological nature of the conflict, which he argues goes far beyond territorial disputes or political differences. According to Moore, the roots of the violence stretch back to a time before the creation of Israel itself. They go back to their religion. And in that religion, if you kill Jews somehow or other, you've done something good for God. This statement reflects a deeply held belief within certain extremist factions that violence against Jews is not only justified, but is seen as an act of religious duty. Moore went on to describe the long-standing history of anti-Jewish violence in the region, claiming that the roots of the conflict stretch back long before the establishment of Israel in 1948. It boggles the Western mind to think this way, but this is what they are teaching their children. They're doing it for generations. This literally goes back to before 1948. Moore emphasized the importance of understanding the historical context of the conflict, pointing to the many attacks on Jewish groups in the region before the creation of Israel. He argued that these attacks were not simply reactions to occupation, but were part of a much older and deeper hatred that has been passed down through generations. As the conversation turned to the broader strategy for dealing with this threat, Moore outlined what he believes is necessary to win the war against this ideology. If we're going to win this war, we have to win it on ideological terms. And how do you convince the other side that if you blow yourself up in a marketplace or you massacre Jews, well, you're not going to heaven, you're going somewhere else. And that needs to be preached and proclaimed through the middle. This statement encapsulates Moore's belief that the only way to defeat this ideology is to challenge it head-on and to undermine the religious justification for violence against Jews. This ideological battle is, according to Moore, just as important as the military conflict. He believes that without confronting the hatred that fuels the violence, the cycle will continue. If you want to say that somehow or other it's a response to occupation, no, it goes much deeper than that, and it's much older than that. These words underscore the complex and deeply ingrained nature of the conflict, which is about much more than just borders or territory. It is, in Moore's view, a war for the future of the region, one that will require both military and ideological victories to truly achieve peace. The conflict in Gaza and the broader Middle East remains at a critical juncture. With the ceasefire hanging by a thread, the possibility of renewed violence looms large. As Israel confronts both internal threats from Hamas and external pressures from its regional adversaries, the challenge of navigating the ideological and military complexities of the conflict will remain a defining feature of this ongoing struggle. The international community, meanwhile, continues to grapple with the broader implications of these events, questioning the effectiveness of peace efforts and the long-term prospects for stability in the region.